Today on Not Church, Jesus. Jesus brought division while channeling peace. WTF. All the beloved wants of you is a peaceful heart. Meister Eckhart. Peace be with you and welcome to Not Church Sundays. No doctrine, no dogma, no BS, just mysticism, connection, experience, humility, and wisdom. I point my finger at the moon, as the famous Zen saying goes. I tend the ground around the spring of peace. I'm Reverend Peter Panagore, Gnostic and mystic, looking at Scripture through the lens of near-death experience. Before we begin today, let's take 3 breaths together, using the word peace with a capital P as our mantra. As you breathe into your belly, think the word peace. Hold your breath a moment in your belly. Release, exhaling the word peace up to your third eye while focusing on peace. So let peace ride on our breath like a butterfly, pausing on your palm as it sinks into your belly and then slowly rises to the spot right there in the middle of your forehead. So let's together. Join me, please, to center ourselves. When we center together, we join together. Not Church Sundays is where, when we gather, the I Am is here with us, in us, and between us, among us. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God, said Jesus. Don't imagine that I've come to bring peace to the world. I came not to bring peace. I brought division, conflict, fire, sword, and war, said Jesus. My peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give it to you as the world gives it. Don't let your hearts be troubled, and don't be afraid, said Jesus. For I have come to turn a son against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. A person's enemies will be the members of her own household and extended family, neighbors, friends, and a nation. In the US of A, popular, prosperity, prophetic, Pentecostal, evangelical, nationalistic Christian pastors preach division and false faith. 40 false prophets spoke for the Lord when they proclaimed and promised in public view a sure thing, a political outcome last November, and their vision of a faith future for us all. False. They were and are false. The blind leading the blind. 40 fake pastors, 40 fake prophets were wrong. Their credibility should have ruined them for all literalists. The Lord spoke to me and said, Victory, a second term. And yet in Deuteronomy, the Bible says to measure a prophet's veracity in this way, quote, You may say to yourselves, how can we know when a message has not been spoken by Yahweh? Answer, if what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Almighty does not take place or come true, that is a message the Almighty has not spoken. Those at least 40 false teachers who led a nation astray with ignorance, conspiracies, and selfishness bring division because they live in a duality and don't know it. They are pharisaical, those parasitical, blind leading the blind. They thrive in this world by eating the souls of their listeners, and the bank accounts of the children of God get swallowed up by setting themselves up in the name of Jesus while missing his teaching entirely, while missing the Christ consciousness entirely. Instead of wisdom, humility, love, and truth, they preach hate, sometimes masked as love. They're like the false leaders, evil teachers, making accommodations to political powers because it serves their personal purpose and vision of the world. Me, my, mine. St. Augustine's three most evil words in the history of humanity. Me, my, mine. How do we know they're false prophets and teachers? Well, Deuteronomy says prophecy has a one strike rule: swing and a miss, and you're out. And yet, again and again, they are wrong and continue. But do their believers reject them? No, the believers don't reject them. The literalists forgive them their false prophecies because they stand to lose power too. Jesus was right about bringing division, conflict, and the sword. The true peace isn't worldly. It isn't here and now, and it can't be gained by political power. It's here and now. True peace is otherworldly. It's in the heart. It's right in here. And how do you find it? How do you move from belief to experience? Some of it's grace out of our hands. Some of it's making room inside ourselves for the grace that brings this living peace. Empty your vessel of yourself. Stop the egoic chatter in your head a little bit every day. When you pray, seek the still small voice. So now, let's take 6 slow, easy breaths together again, putting peace in the forefront of our minds. Reach out with peace to each other right now. Join me, please. Prophecy isn't foretelling the future. Prophecy is foretelling the presence of the divine. It's telling forth the presence of the divine. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I don't give it to you as the world gives it to you. So no matter what, don't let your hearts be troubled in the times we're in, and don't be afraid. Trust the peace inside you. Make room for the peace inside you. Share peace with yourself. Let the peace do the work for you inside you, and it will naturally flow from the inside out. Drink from the spring that will intoxicate you. Drink from the spring that will give you life, here and forever. Let's not pretend that divisions and conflicts don't exist. They do. Let's not just rise above it all. Instead, become a channel of peace. And where there is hatred, sow love. Mysticism isn't about predicting the future either. It's not about prophecy or political power or wealth. It's about dying before you die so that when you die, you do not die. Mysticism is about touching and being touched by the union of peace within you. Here and now, you are a child of God. Make space for the peace inside yourself by getting out of the way. Live from the living water of life, the flowing stream of peace beyond all understanding that is felt and experienced and understood in the soul. Live in this dangerous, divided, divisive, and conflicted world while drinking from the living water of peace. Live from the center of yourself, beyond your brain and body, beyond knowledge. Make yourself into a channel of peace daily. Sow love where you are. Let's pray some words of Saint Teresa of Avila. May today there be peace within. May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content, knowing you are a child of God. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It's there for each and every one of us. The peace that surpasses all understanding is right inside you, right now. If you like what you heard here this morning, if it resonates with you like a hum in your heart or tingle in your belly, then please click the like button and subscribe. I'm available to you, for you, as a counselor, coach, and mentor, for your mystical exploration in your lives where you are. You can book a session with me today at peterpanagore.love or join me at the top of the next hour. Join us at the top of the next hour for Mystic Tea Salon on Zoom. And you can find that link under the Programs tab at peterpanagore.love. You are a child of God. No one is separated. Peace is available inside you. It's not the false peace of prophecy. It's the true peace of humility available to everyone who seeks, allowing us to live in the midst of division and conflict with peace in our hearts, facing the real world while being in it. Thanks for coming this morning. I'm going to go over and take a look at the chat and see what's going on. I'm going to put this down and I'm going to move this away like that and readjust this like this. Ta-da! And pull this in a little closer. There. All right, my friends, straighten out the camera too. I don't want to be crooked. All right, let's see. Pop these on so I can see what you're saying. There are more than 40. There's just 40 famous ones, Colleen. 40 ones that made the big time in the news, reached out to a large audience in YouTube or in whatever form that they broadcast. You're right. I was picking on the 40 famous pastors that talk about Apple stock and tell people to sell what they have so they can properly tithe. Yeah, those pastors. It's a shame that a facility with scripture is a facile ticket to veracity, especially with the people who have been taught not to think for themselves. That's the thing of it, Wanda. They've been taught not to think for themselves and to allow others to do their thinking for them in the closed loop of the Bible, with no new information allowed to come in. Unlike what we do here. Unlike what we do here. All right, let's see where else we are. Hey, everybody from around the country. An excellent education about evangelism. It's messy and wrong. Please share this video with others. Amen. Ali, not Ali. Let's see. Greetings from sunny Prague. Hey, you're in Prague, Patricia. Nice. We need more unconditional love, less separation, as we are truly interconnected. I read a quote by Meister Eckhart this morning. He said, no one, words to this effect, no one is ever separated from the divine love. No one is ever separated from the divine love. We separate ourselves when we set ourselves up in our little egoic kingdoms and queendoms, especially when we gain political power through pastoring, or we seek that with prosperity. The wealth of the gospel isn't in the world. It's in your heart. It's in heaven, that place where you're from and that place you're going to, that place that lives inside you now, that peace that is always present if you seek it and keep seeking it. Oh, thank you, Kristen and Kim and Self Luminosity. Thank you all for your gifts this morning. I appreciate it very much. Peace be with you all, you three in particular, and everybody, of course. Well, it should be obvious that Keith Copeland is an evil fraud masquerading as a Christian evangelicist. Why is he allowed to steal from the weak? It's legal. That's why. It's legal, and they believe him. And he's not the only one. He may be the worst one, certainly maybe the richest one. I come here for one reason, to rekindle the love and peace in my soul that has been challenged all week by division. I don't want to talk about anything that divides here. We talk about that which unites, the peace that unites us in the oneness of being, in the context of the real world, the peace that unites us, everyone, everywhere, all the time. Amen, Mary, says Colleen. Love the prayer from St. Teresa. I wonder if anyone knows the Ravi Zacharias scandal that was hurtful to. I don't know that one. Can you come to Mystic Tea Salon? Love that. Let's see. Anything else? Peter, such a powerful and important message this morning. Thank you, Jim. The prophets who were purported to be speaking in tongues, that was not the Spirit. There was no joy. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that because I'm not sure what you're talking about. I needed, you could be right though. I'm just not sure. I needed that reminder that I'm not separated from the divine. You're not, Sean. Nobody is. Nobody is. Not even those prosperity pastors. They're not either. Nobody is. Everybody's existence is possible, is now because the divine is in them, where there is no separation. There is no division. And the funny thing was, of course, Jesus talked about division. These words that I used this morning, those are his words. Those were his words, not mine. Many of them. I mean, some of them were mine, but the point of it was his. So many preachers we believed were wonderful and later found out to be bad guys. Yeah, one of the things about that is that every pastor has clay feet, to use the biblical term. Yeah, I've got clay feet. Any pastor who sets themselves up to be worshipped or gurued, like to be made a guru, to be made the thing itself, is a big mistake. It's a big mistake. And those people who preach morality and are, secretly gay, not that there's, that didn't come out quite right because I'm in support of LGBTQ, etc. But those who preach hate about that and are themselves, that's hypocrisy. Gee, I'm going to get down the wrong path that way. Um, Knowing, not believing. Yeah, that's the thing. Knowing, not believing. Have an experience of the divine. Connect beyond language and knowledge and understanding to that incomprehensible peace within. Well, my friends, don't see a lot of questions over here this morning. We've had a nice little chat, though. Thank you, Lee. I'm going to skip back up to the top and see what I missed. Hello, everybody. Snow and hello from Scotland. Bonjour from Toronto. Hello from Kennebunk Port. Um, Spirituality shouldn't be so invested in political expression. Willie T. Yeah, it's got really little to do with political expression because that's a thing of the world too. It's got really to do with relationship to each other in love and kindness, humility, truth, built upon that same relationship, that same kind of relationship. Those words, truth, love, kindness, compassion with God, with the divine, with the Heshe, as someone said the other day to me, to use as a word for God. All right, my friends, I'm going to skip down to the bottom again. Thank you, Sybil. But is there a gray area? Let me, only two religions, one of unity and love, and the other of division and hate. Most people are kind of in between those two things. There's like a scale. So people, to, there really is only two. Okay, there's only union with God and not being touched by the divine and the presence of the light, and pretending that you are. I guess that's kind of the way I see it. You are a first goer, a big brother who's reaching back to help those who follow, not a guru. Yeah, that's right. I am no guru. I am a student. I have my own guru. I have one guru, and that is God. God is my guru. I am the student. And in comparison, I am zippo zero nothing. And so I'm just trying to lend a hand here, knowing my status as less than. People who call me stupid are not speaking from their connection to the divine. How do I get connected to the divine when people call me stupid? You practice ahead of time. You practice ahead of time. Of course, it's going to hurt you. When people call you names, it hurts, right? That's just the way it is. You get hurt when people call you names. But if you have a belly full of peace when you go into that conversation, then it's easier to access it when you need it. You take that breath and you don't engage. You don't feed the trolls. That's the rule on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else, every social media. You don't feed the trolls. You don't respond, and by not responding, you give them no power over you. because what they want you to do is to respond. And when they call you stupid, and I, for one, all right, I was called stupid a lot growing up. Dyslexic, ADD, not sure, about my intelligence half my life because I couldn't read. Mm, I never liked being called stupid. It always hurt. It's still kind of a button with me. So I get that. But if you carry this belly full of peace with you, when that's said to you or any hurtful words are said to you, you get to tap that. It might not stop the emotion immediately, but you get to tap it and dive into that and not respond with anger and push back against them. And when you don't push back against them, they have no power over you in that conversation. I hope that helps, Colleen. Not sure how I feel about calling out pastors and calling them false prophets. Well, it feels like we're on a playground. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm not. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I'm not calling them out. Deuteronomy called them out. Deuteronomy said, you make a false prophecy. If you don't, if your prophecy is not true, you're not a prophet. Deuteronomy says that. And in a world where division is causing havoc, sometimes it's important to depower those who are propelling false belief systems. I'm out here trying to bring love and peace to the world, but I've faced the real world. I've been attacked by bullies. I know that sometimes you have to stand up to them and call them out. I'm not calling to cancel them. This is not a canceling calling kind of thing here. This is merely pointing out that they prophesied. Their people believed them and they're wrong. And literalists, they need to understand that the Bible says, if they're literalists, that when a prophecy is false, the person who spoke it is not a prophet. Sorry, folk, if I upset you a little bit this morning with speaking truth to power. Sorry. That's a good. Allie says, I reply with, I love you. That's a beautiful reply, Allie. A belly full of love. Yeah. A belly full of love gives you strength in the face of real conflict and division. It really, truly does. hmm Being a pastor is not all peaches and cream, says Lee. No, it's totally not. Anybody who says they love being a pastor, when I was a pastor, they're like, oh, I love being a pastor. I'd be like, what job are you doing? Hmm. It didn't happen, then he didn't say it. Amen, Peter, says Lee. Thank you, Lee. I love how NDEs are so very personal and about learning how to love unconditionally. I'm still learning about mine, and it's been 34 years. Miss Rocky. Hey, Miss Rocky, same deal here. Mine's been 40 years, and it's still teaching me. I am still its student because, unconditional love is on the other side, and it's real, folks, real beyond your imagination and comprehension. But living that here is difficult because we are all stuck back in the mud again. We're all back in the world of suffering. And so, just like everybody else, we struggle with it too. We tap into it because we know that it's real and it gives us an extra boost, but we still struggle with it here. We still struggle with it here. It's true. Thanks for saying that, Miss Rocky. By the way, Peter means rock. I used to be called Stone or Pebble or Rocco, a bunch of names when I was growing up. Um, a message from Jesus, channeled by Susan Geisman. Wars have been fought in my name, and yet we do not weep. Yet we do not weep, for the journey is long, but the reward is worth it. Yeah, the reward. Great is your reward in heaven. Another Bible quote. Great is your reward in heaven. The treasure of love awaits us. And when you learn to die the little death here, it makes it easier when you go there because it's familiar, not so much of a shock. Ali, we must continue to speak truth to power. Uh, yep, we do, for sure. I was introduced to Meister Eckhart reading Matthew Fox 30 years ago. Funny how he keeps showing up in conversations. Hey, Ruth, he may be, Meister Eckhart may be the greatest Christian mystic who ever was. That's the way I see it. Someone said to me the other day, asked me, so who are the two great Christian mystics. I was like, oh, that's easy. Meister Eckhart and the Cloud of Unknowing. And there's a whole bunch of others, of course, who are, in the top 10. There's probably 100 in the top 10. But Meister Eckhart tops the list for me. Um, he had the good fortune of dying before they burned him at the stake for his heresies. Um, 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 uh, Colleen, thank you for your service to us, Peter. I taught my kids to say senseless, as it doesn't make sense to me. Stupid is a bad word. Yeah, stupid's a bad word. It's a bad word. Senseless means senseless. Thank you, Colleen, and thanks for that gift this morning, too. I appreciate that. And thank you, Sean, very much. I appreciate that, too, the gift that you just sent as well. Linda, Peter, your book was so descriptive of your NDE. Do you still have a clear memory of it? Oh, yeah. It's weird, Not only do I have a clear memory of where I didn't have a brain, I have a clear memory of the place where I did not have a brain. It I learn more and remember more year by year. Year by year by year by year, it reveals itself more and more and more. And the deeper I dive within myself, the more I get my egoic self out of the way, my false self, the clearer my memory becomes. And I think that's true for a lot of NDEers. The older we get, the more it reveals itself to us if we pursue it. At least that's my experience of it. But yeah, it like for instance in the book I talk about hell. These days I call it a purgative fire of divine love because that's really what it was. I got purged. I was purged of all the pain that I carried with me. It was a purging. And I was thinking about I think it's the Gospel of, I don't want to say Mark or Matthew, it's one of those two, where Jesus talks about eternal suffering. I don't think that's what the Greek says. I think it says an age of, what's the word I'm looking for? An age of reorienting, something like that, something to that effect. That the purgative fire, divine love that I went through, that cleansed me of my suffering, lasted a period of time, and it was a reorientation. It wasn't eternal damnation and hellfire. It wasn't. It was a cleansing for a period of time that reoriented me, allowed me to see myself as I truly was in the presence of unconditional love and forgiveness and mercy and peace and beauty beyond explanation. He brings peace which is so revolutionary that it creates conflict in the world of our earthbound selves, Kristen says. That is so true. The revolutionary peace of Jesus causes conflict. Yep. Sentient beings think of animals. What energy would they choose to be in? An energy of love or hate? Animals immediately sense safety and love. They can't rationalize it, they feel it immediately, says Ellie. Have you read A Course in Miracles? If so, do you believe it's an additional revelation by Jesus? I've read some of it, Kendall. I haven't read all of it. I have lots of acquaintances who are in the Course, as they call it. Is it a revelation? I can't make a determination on that, but what I can say is that they came to me saying that lots of the things that I say are in the Course in Miracles, which leads me to believe, and that was before I'd ever even read any of it, which leads me to believe that it has as much of a divine origin as any other book that speaks of the presence of love or any other person who's touched into the divine. Uh, I look at everything mythologically, everything that come and metaphorically, everything that's spoken about God, every word that's ever written about God isn't accurate because nothing can be said about God that's accurate because God is beyond language. And so there are lots of books in the world that help, and A Course in Miracles is one of them. But I haven't read it all the way through, and I probably may or may not. It's pretty dense, so I don't know if I have enough time in my life to devote to that and to get a strong understanding of it. Humans are cursed with the ability to rationalize, and that makes space for the darkness to enter. Yeah, maybe, I suppose. I think that, without the ability to rationalize, we wouldn't have, or to reason, we wouldn't have survived as a species. So there's that. Um, but when we mistake reason for the divine presence, that's where an error arises, because it's not the same thing. Every mystic will tell you that from Plato on down, and probably before Plato. Um, how come you said in your NDE story that a voice told you you won't live your life? Asked Angel. I'm going to get a drink of water here, Angel. Well, I'm going to answer that question too. I said that, Angel, because that's what God said to me. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but what it meant, I came to live into, I came to understand in my life that what God meant when God said that to me, the voice said that to me, the voice with no sound, was that my life 1.0 was over, zero ended. I had zero zeroed out, shut down, died. And when I was allowed to come back, I would be living a different life with a different perception, heading in a different direction, because I was more deeply divinely connected in a way that I couldn't shake or break. And I've lived my life that was not my own. My dreams of working in the family business, being an architect, making a ton of money, building skyscrapers in Boston, all of that went away for me. I lived my life for God. I live my life. I have one boss. I have one boss, and that's for whom I work. And so I'm not living the life I was going to live. I'm living an entirely different one in the same body, but with a very different perspective and direction and motivation. I hope that kind of answers your question. How can we learn to detach from worldly things to help with our transition back home? The mystics, the mystics all over the world teach meditation. That's what they teach. They teach meditation practice as a way of non-attachment. By non-attaching yourself to your own false ego, your own egoic mind, mine, in my practice, I allow myself the quiet space, the quietude inside myself for touching that peace that is within me already. And when I touch that peace within me already, it reinforces the non materialistic nature of myself and connects me deeper to the divine and allows me to live in the world and not being of the world. But most of it truly comes from grace, capital G. I just did the meditation, but the experience of it, the presence of it, that's not my doing. My living non attached, that's not my doing. That's the divine grace through the directing of my heart toward the oneness of being. It's a long practice, but it can be accelerated by the divine presence itself when it touches you, when it lifts you, when it communicates with you. Say, for instance, and I use this example all the time, when you get visited by someone you love who's dead, and you realize in that moment, that non linguistic uh, communication of download of love, that love is all there is. And that helps detach oneself from the world because you uh, remember and reattach yourself to the divine in that experience. And that's not quite accurately said. You don't do the reattaching. It reattaches to you. How do you think an NDE compares to an awakening like Eckhart Tolle had? Is an awakening in this important in life, or does it matter if we die, how we die awake, or does it matter after we die how we awaken here? I think there's a bunch of different levels. There's calling, awakening, realization, enlightenment. I think that there are awake realizations that happen that are highly mystical, very similar to near-death experience, like Meister Eckhart, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Rumi. Those people, their mystical experiences are very similar to near-death experience. And no, you don't need a near-death experience because the moment you die, you awaken. That's the crazy thing. You die, you awaken. It's like you're going to find out, which makes it so wonderful, so that you don't have to pursue a spiritual life in this life. All you have to do is love, and live compassionately and kindly to the best of your ability. Love the people who love you and love those who don't love you if you can. Aim your heart at love. But maybe there are gradations. I know that there are gradations on the other side. There are levels of heavens. I know that because I've seen them. At least in my experience, that's what I learned. And what I learned in this life was immaterial in comparison to the divine love that was shown to me that I was beyond my comprehension. My awakening in death had very little to do with my life. My life prepared me for it in some ways, and those are other stories. So I didn't go into it blindly. Um, but that said, when you die, you awaken. So don't worry about it. I better get my ADHD brain disciplined. Yeah, it's a training ground. I'm ADHD, and meditation is a training ground for your brain. It's really awesome that way. It can teach you focus. I mean, ADHD people already can hyperfocus. If you have the experience of hyperfocusing, it's similar to that. Um, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it. It hasn't stopped me from being ADD, okay? But it definitely helps me focus, practically speaking. It sounds like you know that you live knowing you are a living expression of God. You know what all of us are likewise learning. We're a living expression of God. Yes, Sybil, I know that I'm a living expression of God. I didn't choose that. That's what happened to me. That's one of the things that I came back with. That's one of the you're not going to live your life sort of things. Um, yeah, I definitely know that. I know that most of me still on the other side. I still see the world as if I'm looking through this pair of eyes at you, as opposed to not knowing that I'm inside myself and above myself. I it's the way it is for me, and for lots of NDEers too. I'm not alone in that. I'm not special. Sounds like you experienced the purgative fire that Peter did, Brandon. Oh, Brandon, I missed your comment, Brandon. Um, yes, Yeshua Ham Hamashesh lives inside my belly. Yes, you could say that. That's the way to put it. Um, have you been back to heaven recently, and how? What do you do if you can't quiet your mind? Two different questions. I haven't been back to heaven recently, but I have been back to heaven frequently. The last time where I was taken out of myself was several years ago now, and it was phenomenally healing for me. I prepare myself for such journeys by meditation, by learning, by prayer, by repetition of my mantra, by emptying myself of myself, by stilling my egoic mind. And practice. I mean, I don't walk around like that every day. I sit and I practice that, and then I go about my life, and I continue to think about things during my day because that's what you got to do in the world. Um, if you can't quiet your mind, well, divine grace can still do it to you if God wants to. God, God's in charge of this, not me, not you. God chooses to put the finger on individual people, and why that is, I'm not really sure. But you don't have to meditate for it to happen. It, Plenty of times it happens without any sort of quieting of the mind. It's just that the quieting of the mind is the only tool we have to make that happen, to help that along. And so that's why I use it. No such thing as ghosts, only demons. Once someone dies, that's it. They go to heaven based upon their salvation through Jesus Christ. Trust me, I used to try. So I don't know. I've met ghosts. Um, the emerging awareness that comes with our daily practice of dying meditation is the greatest gift to the spirit, says Brother Ed. Thank you, Brother Ed. Not everyone goes to heaven, says Brandon. Everyone is beloved, the child of God, Brandon. You're not the judge of that. I'm not the judge of that. Um, let's see. I'm glad you call out Christians who don't seem to align with Christ. I get discouraged, stymied by their conviction that they're right and I'm wrong with respect. How do we get beyond shouting matches? We just don't engage. Why bother engaging? Why bother engaging? Because they're not going to hear you anyway. Just aim your heart at God and live a life of compassion and love. Um, uh, I'm being called demonic. Thank you, Brandon. I don't agree with the New Age bullshit Mr. Panagore uses. It's demonic. No purgatory, only hell. Thanks for referencing all these things from the Bible. I just talk about what I know from where I went, Brendan. Brandon, I'm sorry to mispronounce your name, but you can be assured I won't be responding anymore because I don't. Do you think that there is such a thing as entering the spiritual realm illegally? No, no, no. You c The divine knower, the omniscient, omnipresent God knows everything there is about everything there is. There's nothing hidden. Nothing is hidden from the divine. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Nothing is hidden from the divine. Hi, Peter. I just love you and your channel. Is there any reward for the sacrifices we make in this life of forgiving when we don't want to, pursuing money for a higher calling? Any action of love reaps reward. Any action of love reaps reward on its own because it is love, and the reward of living lovingly is love itself. It's love itself. Yeah. Since your NDE, have you ever felt like you needed to go away from everyone in civilization and grow further spiritually? I have very strong urge to do this. It's stronger than it's ever been. Yeah, I went through a long period of time, Miss Rocky, where that's all I wanted to do. And I kind of did that in some ways. I mean, I'm kind of doing it now. I live in a very isolated place in a very rural community on the end of a peninsula, on the end of another peninsula, off that peninsula, way down at the end, sticking out into the ocean. So I kind of am doing that because it allows me to not so much have to face into the conventions of the world, but also gives me a lot of time out in nature where I can commune with God and the presence of the divine and the spirit that leaks through everything there is. But on the other hand, I chose to get married and have kids. And when you get married and have kids and you got to earn a living, then there's no there's no sitting around in a cave somewhere navel gazing through the rest of my life. I got to engage in the world to be able to live in the world. So it's a balance between those two things. I nearly entered the Trappist monastery outside of Worcester, Massachusetts, in order to get away from the world, but decided that I liked sex too much and relationships to do that. So I gave up that direction of my life and I chose to get married instead. I live in the world, but I'm not of the world. I find my solitude and the peace I'm seeking inside myself. That's where the divine presence lives. That's where God is found, right inside your heart. And no one is ever separated from it. It's always there within. And you can dive within where you are, no matter what you're doing. It's not easy, okay? It's easier to move away and pursue a spiritual life only. But I wanted to engage in the world too. So you can do both. But I know that urge. And I've modified myself and my life to satisfy that urge by diving within myself, which is what I learned is the only way out of here. Um, let's see. Oh, Brandon, you're still attacking me. Thank you. Um, I've withdrawn from people lately too for spiritual pursuits. Yeah, um, I definitely do that. I definitely withdraw from my spiritual pursuits. Yeah, I'm not out there partying. Although I do go out and socialize when I have the opportunity, and we're not in COVID land, COVID world. But same thing here. I don't know what to do about this because I've been with my husband for 26 years. You understand? Oh, I totally get it. I've been married for more than 30 years, and my wife is lovely and intelligent and loving and a good mother and a good wife and all these good things. And she's super smart. But she doesn't see what I see, and that's not her fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. And so I live in a balance between the two. And it's frustrating. There's no doubt about that. But she was never going to be my salvation anyway. It's always inside of me. It's always the divine connection within. As Meister Eckhart taught, the eye wherein I see God, God sees me. That's the eye where I stare at. That's the eye at which I stare. And that can be done anywhere. But it's not easy. Anybody who thinks that a spiritual life or living with an NDE afterwards is a piece of cake, it's not. It comes with as many conflicts as it does with blessings. Um, God would not create a human being to set them up for failure, knowing that they would be put in a family life experience that would lead them to hell without while being an omnipresent and all loving. Yep, that's right. Yep. All we need to do. So I was redeemed after I was a born again Christian when I died. Okay, but I was a backsliding born again Christian by at least 2 years. But I was redeemed in the Christian sense. I was forgiven in the Christian sense. I was shown mercy in the Christian sense after I died. After I died, in the presence of the omnipotent love that showed itself to me in an overwhelming, self evident way. That's where I found my salvation in the love and light of the divine being itself. And nobody gets set up for failure. Everybody finds God when they die. It's right there. It's whether you choose to look at it or not, I think, is what the difference is. You choose to aim your heart toward it or you choose not to. Um, I need to I need an off the grid home. Yeah. Come to Maine. There's a whole bunch of people living off the grid up here. I've got a few minutes left and then it's going to be top of the hour for Mystic Tea Salon and you're welcome to come. Let's see. That's my question. How do I live with someone who doesn't see things the same way as you? Well, you let them see the way they see. Do you have to force them into seeing the way they see? That you see, rather? Do you have to force them into seeing that? It's impossible to make someone see what you see. I don't try to convince anybody, Colleen. I gave up trying to convince anybody or showing anybody because it wasn't successful. And so I try to let people be who they are, where they are, as they are, as long as they're not like punching me in the face or causing me all sorts of trouble. I let them be, um, and otherwise, I just live my interior world in the context of this other world that nobody really can see. It feels like half the time, but me and my where I live anyway. It's kind of lonely, but it's okay. Because I know where I'm from and I know where I'm going and to whom I am connected. God hasn't brought us this far to drop us on our heads. Yeah, I need more God, and my husband seems to want more Aleister Crowley. Well, keep your heart aiming at God. I- w- Keep your heart aiming at God. If he wants Aleister Crowley, let him go. Find Aleister Crowley. I'm not interested in using magic or manipulating the world or trying to manifest my life or my sailing boat or anything else I think about. I'm trying to manifest my connection to the divine only, and I let everything else fall where it may. Um, uh, I'm not sure what you do in that kind of conflict with if he wants you to pursue Aleister Crowley, and you say no. I just want God. I'm not sure what to do about that except for to just say no and let me be myself and follow my own path. Thank you very much. I still love you, but I'm doing it this way. I mean, I have family who are on opposite ends, people who are married on opposite ends of the American political spectrum, radically opposite ends, but they still love each other and they live together and they get along fine. Kind of the same thing. As long as you're not trying to force somebody to think like you, I don't, because all thinking is it's all made up anyway. On the other side, you don't even have a brain. Um, Sometimes you have to go your own way. I believe my hell on earth's suffering is my purgative fire lessons so I can get to heaven sooner. Maybe so. It's entirely unlike that on the other side. There's nothing on the other side that's anything like what it is here. It's other with a capital O. I don't know if you saw my question, but do you believe we are all make it into heaven? I know that everyone is a beloved child of God and everyone is a prodigal child of God. I saw that. God showed me that every single person is beloved of God. Every single person is loved. Every single person. I think we have some agency in that. I'm not sure how much. I didn't feel like I had much of a choice but to accept the divine overwhelming presence of love. I suppose I could have rejected it, but it, it never crossed my thinking. Fear not, fear not, for you are beloved, a beloved child of God. And if you aim your heart there, fear not. And I'm not much of a believer. I don't know if you know that about me. I'm not really a believer. I'm a knower. I've got 2 minutes left, and so I'm going to say, fare thee well, my friends. And peace and blessings upon all of you. Thank you for all the gifts you gave this morning of conversation and questions. And God bless you, Brendan, and every other person who's here today. I thank you for joining me. See you next Sunday at Not Church on Not Church Sundays. Peace and love. And now may the divine presence be with us, always now, always here, and open our hearts to your love, my God, that we might live in you as we face whatever conflicts we have in the world, to the peace inside our bellies, the living water that flows through us, the water of life. Amen. All right, my friends, 59 here, and I remember to subscribe and hit the bell for notification. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks for coming, everybody. Peace and love, my friends. See you next week.